Hey, it's Zay Green. You're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Greetings from Daytona, where a band of dreamers took a strip of beach and turned it into a proving ground. The Great American Race, where year after year, greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Once you arrive, you'll never look back. Secure your seats now at Daytona 500.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you from our studios in Tuscaloosa for what turns out to be our final edition here in 2024 before we have a little bit of a holiday break and then get the show back going in January. But it's an exciting edition of the show, talking all basketball for this show. We're going to have an interview with one of the newest members of the women's basketball family. Signee Ace Austin will join us to talk about her decision to sign with the Crimson Tide and play for Christy Curry. So an interview with her off the top, and then we'll check in with Richard Hendrix, who of course had a great career here at the University of Alabama and then in pro basketball. He is now an SEC network analyst. He'll break down what he's seen from everything around SEC basketball and Alabama men's and women's basketball as well. Then we'll check in with Nate Oats with our Hey Coach replay as he visited with Chris Stewart on Monday night for the first basketball edition of Hey Coach this season. That's what's coming up on the show. Now we'll take a look at our headlines. Thanks to our friends RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us this smart board to go through our headlines in a fun, interactive way. Look, that went smaller. Look, this will get bigger. There we go, the Alabama football headlines coming up. The ReliaQuest Bowl is the destination for the Crimson Tide this season. Unfortunately, Alabama not making it to the college football playoff, but we are excited for what's coming up. Alabama against Michigan coming up on December 31st, noon Eastern start time. So that means 11 Central, and that means our radio start time will be 8 a.m. all across the network for Alabama against Michigan once again in the postseason. Congratulations to Jalen Milroe, the winner of the Campbell Trophy to the best scholar athlete in college football. It's their version of what they like to call the academic Heisman. Barrett Jones, a past winner of the award. So huge honor for Jalen Milroe, not just his accomplishments on the field, but in the classroom as well. Great to see that. And you need to check out his speech as well from earlier this week accepting the Campbell Trophy Award. Also, Antonio Langham, he's been honored this week. Someone we had on Crimson Drive as our legend a couple weeks ago leading up to the Iron Bowl, but Antonio Langham fully inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. Great ceremony for him in New York. Roll Tide to Antonio Langham. Over to the men's basketball, last week was a fun one for the men's team, picking up a win in the SEC ACC Challenge. 94-79, the Crimson Tide get the win against the UNC Tar Heels at the Smith Center in Chapel Hill. Now coming up this week, it'll be Alabama after some time off for exams, home against Creighton, the Creighton Blue Jays, a team that defeated Alabama last year. It's certainly been a great basketball rival through the years. Alabama against Creighton coming up this week. Alabama and Creighton again coming up at home. I believe at a misprint is 6:30 the airtime. 7:30 will be the tip-off of that ball game. But for all of you joining us, make sure you check out the first edition of Stipe Lounge coming up this year for our radio airtime as first portion of the pregame show, always on the concourse level at Coleman Coliseum. Alabama currently ranked 7th in the AP poll. Great to see the team continue to be in that top 10. For the women's basketball team, Christy Curry's group has stayed in the top 25 all throughout the season. Last week suffered the first loss of the year in what was a really well-played game in Berkeley, California. Final score was Alabama falling to Cal 69-65, but Cal certainly looks like an NCAA tournament team. Same can be said for the women's basketball team. They'll be home next against Murray State coming up on Sunday. 1:45 will be the start time for our broadcast of Alabama against Murray State. And as I mentioned, Crimson Tide staying ranked right now number 22 in the coaches poll. And the future is certainly bright for Alabama women's basketball. Coming up, Ace Austin headlines this new signing class for the Crimson Tide, the reigning Miss Basketball in the state of Alabama, someone that's been a state champion before at Spring Garden, and she joins us now to talk about her decision to make Alabama her college choice. Ace, Roll Tide, it's great to have you with us. How's everything going?
Yes, sir. Roll Tide. Everything's going great. Well, you're coming to us now from the Spring Garden Gym that's pretty empty, but I hear a few weeks ago it was pretty full for your signing day announcement to join the University of Alabama. Just what's this experience been like, getting recruited by the Crimson Tide and then opting to stay home in the state of Alabama with Christy Curry in this outstanding program?
Oh, it's been great. Ever since they started recruiting me, like it was just the connection that I felt like it was just family. And being able to stay home and, represent the state of Alabama and my hometown, I mean, it means a lot. And a lot of other people say, like, I'm glad you stayed in the state. And it means a lot to stay in state. And I know I'm going to have a lot of people that support me. So I'm just glad I had the opportunity to. So I'm going to represent well.
Yeah, we certainly enjoyed seeing the video boards with the script A, the Alabama logo, and then CE right behind it for
Yes.
Ace. Can we expect more of that? Maybe some NIL opportunities down the road?
Yes, definitely for sure. I mean, if I have the opportunity, I've got the opportunity to, and it's perfect. I mean, it works out great. So I think it's just a really eye-catching way in Alabama A. So you'll definitely be seeing more of it.
We look forward to that. First of all, tell us about your basketball journey. Who got you into this sport?
Definitely both of my parents. My mom, she played college basketball at Jacksonville State University. She coached there for a couple of years. And my dad, he's still the high school coach at where I'm at. He's been here for 20 something years. I mean, he could retire right now. So I have two older brothers. So I grew up in the gym every single day. I mean, they would be practicing and I would be just a little baby crawling in the middle of the floor right there. So that kind of just shows where I've grown up with it. So I was born into basketball. I guess that's what you could say. And just my parents just let me do whatever growing up. And then they realized, like this is what she wants to do. So they supported me through the whole journey. And my brothers would come up here and shoot all the time. And so I'd come up with them. I'd come play with them and their friends, just me growing up. And that's just where I've became today. And then ever since maybe about fifth grade, I started playing travel basketball and I've just kept growing into it and loving the game. So I just continue to work for it.
And that's paid off to some really great results, especially some state championships, getting to play for your dad. Just how much have you enjoyed that experience, having him as your head coach?
Oh yeah, it's something special, and there's not many people that get to experience that, having him as your dad and your coach. And a lot of people thinks it's tough because a lot of people think when you go home, it's like he's your coach, but in that moment, he's just my dad. Like we're gonna drop it. It's just the dad and daughter duo, and it means a lot because he's gonna push me to a different level because I'm his daughter, not just his player at that moment. So it means a lot, and it's a lot more special, especially when you get to win a state championship because I grew up watching him win the state championship. So I mean, when I was in the fifth grade, they got beat in the state championship, and I remember going up to him saying, "Don't worry, we're going to be back here in a couple of years." So I mean, it's just kind of the little things like that, and I mean, it's just been a lot, and it's been really special.
Yeah, 1A basketball state champions now, what, three times? Hopefully a fourth coming up this season for Spring
Yes,
Garden.
sir.
Brag on your teammates a little bit. How has this group become so consistent winning these state titles?
Oh yeah. This year's group I have been with since I was in first grade. So it's very special. My seventh grade year, I had some of my cousins on the team, which was that was very special too, just growing up because they had already won some. But just the past years, it's been a connection and we all grow up like family. I mean, we're all close. We bonded great and it's we're all best friends, and I'm not real sure what other schools are like with the teammates there, but I think that just kind of shows how we play on the court and just outside of basketball. I mean, we're always there for each other. We're all going to pick somebody up if somebody's down, and that just kind of shows how we're all going to give everybody everything we have out there on the floor. We're not going to go 99%. We're going to go 101%. So that kind of just tells you how we are.
Of course, you're the 2024 Alabama Miss Basketball. We mentioned the state championship success,
Mhm.
AL.com Player of the Year as well. So with that, you're a top 100 recruit, top 50 by some services. With that comes a lot of attention and the recruiting process. Just how much did you
Yes.
enjoy the recruiting process, and when did Alabama and Coach Curry first get on your radar?
First, they have been on my radar. I'd at least say eighth grade. Even before, we've always had a connection, but it really started picking up once I had gotten my first few offers. And uh, the recruiting process, it started off slow, of course, like always, and then it really picked up. And it got pretty wild and hectic and a little stressful every now and then, but that's how it's supposed to be. And I mean, you're trying to look for that perfect home for you. And they always supported me through everything. And it one thing that showed for me to them is when we'd have our phone calls, like it wasn't all about basketball. That was one thing that stood out to me. And I mean, the first thing they would ask is, how's your family doing? And, what'd you and your friends do today? And that was one thing that stood out to me because, they just want to know how I'm enjoying my life. And just through the recruiting process, they wasn't pushing me to choose them as much. Like they just let me do me. And I mean, there was nights that I would be up late. Coaches would call me. I mean, it'd be about 11 o'clock before I could really get in bed, and it was pretty hectic, stressful. But then, I mean, I knew Alabama was home, and I was like, why wait? Because I know that's where I want to be.
Sure, you enjoyed your time coming here to Tuscaloosa to visit with the coaches, but how about the players, especially the current players on this roster? How much do you enjoy getting to interact with them? Many of them will be your teammates when you suit up in Crimson next year.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. And if I could go down there more than I have recently, I would go down there whenever I have the opportunity to do. Because I mean, I love each and every one of them. They're great. When I go and visit them, I mean, they treat me just like as I'm already there. And I've been friends with some of them just through AAU and like Chloe Spring and Leah Brooks through AAU. And I know I just can't wait to be down there because I mean you can tell how they all get along. It's family and I mean Sarah Ashley and she treats everybody unbelievable. I mean, even if you're from another school, I mean, you can just tell she's really a huge leader on that team. And I just can't wait to get down there to be with all them.
Yeah, do you feel like this is going to be a pretty special season? The team is off to the best start in program history, been ranked
Yes.
in the top 25 all year long.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're gonna have a really good season. They've already started off to a great season, and before the season started, I kind of knew this was gonna be a really fun season for them and to watch. And the coaches knew it as well, and I just can't wait to keep watching throughout the season and when SEC play starts.
We certainly look forward to that. Can't let you
Mhm.
go without asking you this. You have a great name, Ace Austin. Is Ace a nickname? Is that your given name at birth? Tell us the story.
Well, actually, it's my middle name, but it is JC Ace Austin. But there may be one person in my whole life that ever calls me JC, and it's my grandmother, and she will not let it go. But it's Ace on everything. Ace goes on all my homework, all my papers, anything. What's your first name? Ace Austin. That's what it goes to. So, uh, Ace came from Ace Clements that used to play basketball, and my dad he loved that he just loved that name. He was like that just fit. That's what we need to name our daughter, and Ace was originally going to be my first name, but there was no middle name to go with Ace. So, but I bet they really didn't believe that Ace would be what everybody called me to this day. But that's kind of where it came from, and I think it's just been the perfect match.
It really has. I'm going to get ready saying it. Ace for three over and over again when you come here to play for
Yes.
Alabama. Ace Austin, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on signing with the Crimson Tide. We can't wait to see you here in Tuscaloosa in a year, but best of luck to you and your teammates chasing down another state championship this year. Thank you for your time with us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Roll Tide.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Roll Tide.
Experience racing like never before. From the sandy beaches of Daytona to the high banks of one of the most exciting super speedways on the NASCAR circuit. Don't miss out as NASCAR kicks off the 2025 season with the Daytona 500 on February 16th, 2025. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. From a future outstanding Alabama player to one that certainly played well, just scoring over 1,000 points in his career, playing for the men's basketball team, Richard Hendrix, who went on to a lengthy pro career as well. He's now in his newest career, of course, as a member of the media, as an analyst on the SEC Network, and he joins us some on the Crimson Tide Sports Network for games here and there for women's basketball on the radio, and then on the men's side, he'll be on SEC Network Plus coming up for the game on December 29th against South Dakota State. But he likes to join us once a month for Hoops with Hendrix, giving us his thoughts on Alabama men's and women's basketball, plus a lot of thoughts you'll want to hear about SEC basketball on the men's and women's side. Here's our first edition of Hoops with Hendrix as we get closer to the start of SEC play.
Richard, great to see you. Roll Tide, how's everything going here in December?
Well, great to be back. Everything's great, Roger. Basketball season is here. The temperature's dropped a little bit. Good to be inside. Alabama basketball is looking pretty good.
Yeah, both teams continue to be in the top 25. The men's team obviously staying in the top 10 and even improving their position after last week's win against North Carolina. Just from your perspective, how have you seen this team grow throughout the first few weeks of the year?
Well, I think they started off the season strong. I think the biggest question for me was going to be, how could Nate Oats manage a roster that had so many talented guards? He's done a really good job of making sure that he's keeping everyone in the roster in action and playing at a high level. You have the loss to Latrell Wrightsell, which is definitely going to be a blow to the team. But when you have so many players to step up, you definitely have some opportunities to continue to be a really good team.
Mark Sears coming back. Everyone talked about what his production may look like and had that one game against Illinois where he did not score. But since then, he's been on a scoring tear, certainly was in Las Vegas. Just what do you make of this season for Mark Sears?
Well, it's hard to keep a really good player down. I mean, Mark Sears is arguably one of the best players, if not the most accomplished player that's ever played at the University of Alabama. And, you know, coming off of a season last year when you're averaging almost 22 points a game, shooting 50% from field goal, 40% from the three-point line, and 90 from the free throw line, it's very hard to back that up and improve upon that again. I thought it was something where he should have obviously been a first-round draft pick. Didn't get that grade, came back. You add to more depth that this team has. But this is a balanced team. You have two in every single position. You have two good point guards, two good shooting guards. You have bigs now with Amori to now come in and be a legitimate five-man, and two freshmen, Darion Reed and Aiden Sherrill, who have definitely contributed as well. So it's a talented roster. Pick your poison. But, you know, they've obviously stumbled a couple of times, but it's a team that I don't think anyone in the SEC wants to play when they know they're at full strength.
Yeah, you mentioned some really talented freshmen on this team. How about LeBaron Philon, what you've seen from him this year?
Well, I think he's a dynamic freshman. He plays with so much maturity. His end-to-end speed is elite, but it's also his ability to decelerate and create for others. He uses his eyes to manipulate the defense to find shooters on the outside and drop it off to other bigs in the paint. The playmaking ability that he has is next level for a player that's so young. You hear only good things about him on the road when I go around talking to NBA scouts and other NBA personnel about his abilities. If he can continue to add the outside shot consistently, as well as his playmaking abilities, I mean, he has the level to pair with Mark Sears that they have an elite level backcourt. And it's so impressive for such a young player.
Only a handful of games before SEC play begins. You have Creighton coming up this week, the road trip to North Dakota, and then a couple of home games against Kent State and South Dakota State mixed in. Just what are some unanswered questions getting ready for SEC play for this team?
Well, I think for me, it's going to be how can you handle playing against quality big men on the inside? Nate Oates' system is always something that you play five out. There's not a major focal point in post play, but the challenge that Alabama has when they'll get ready to play against Ryan Kalkbrenner, who's averaging about 18 points a game and about over 8 rebounds and one of the best bigs in the country, is how do you defend a player who they're going to give him high usage touches on the post as well as utilize him in the pick and roll. When you don't practice that way, hard to get a look against that type of player. They've had players in the past that they've struggled against. You talk about what was done earlier in the season on the road at Purdue when interior play was definitely something that hindered Alabama. That's going to be the adjustment that's going to have to be played as they continue to move on into the SEC play and playing against tougher teams such as Auburn and Janai Broome, who's one of the better bigs in the league. You have to be able to see how can you defend the post as well as make your defensive efforts translate to easy buckets on the offensive end.
We'll get back to Auburn and Janai Broome coming up in a moment. But first, want to talk about Crimson Tide women's basketball. I know you keep up with this program, called several of their games, not only for us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, but on SEC Network as well. Just Christy Curry and this group, perfect start to the season at 9-0 prior to the loss against California. Best start in program history. What's made this team so good so early this year?
Well, I think it has to start with the leadership of Sarah Ashley Barker. You know, when you come back and you pair that with Aaliyah Nye, you have two veteran guards who understand the standard. They do an outstanding job of running their offense, which is hard for teams to catch up on when they're able to play with so much pace and space and versatility. Essence Cody has started to be a little bit more of a force. She showed some promise in the last game in the loss to Cal in the SEC ACC Challenge. If she can play to her ability, a double-double threat every single night. Now, Alabama has a team that can really compete in the SEC. Now, the challenge with the SEC is with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas, this is really a tough league. But if they can continue to have that inside-outside punch with Cody and the guards on the perimeter, then Alabama can definitely be a force to be reckoned with in conference play.
Cody, Barker, Nye, we know what we're getting there based on what we saw from them last year, but a new addition to the starting lineup is point guard Zay Green. She's been scoring at a high level. How much of an impact does it have to have a point guard that knows how to get to the rim and score?
Huge, because it takes a lot of the pressure off of the other shooters with Barker and Nye, as we talked on. Zay Green has a unique ability to go coast to coast and play downhill, and she is so shifty when she's moving at full speed. With her height and her ability and her length, she's able to finish over much smaller players. She can play in the post. And when she's shooting the shot from the outside, I mean, she is electric to watch. I mean, there's been so many games that she's had big time performances offensively as well as defensively getting out in the passing lane. So this is a strong Alabama team. I love the versatility that they have with the guard play. As you mentioned, Zay Green, Sarah Ashley Barker, Aaliyah Nye. And if you can couple that with the inside play with Cody, you have a team that can make a deep run in the NCAA tournament if they get the favorable matchups.
And you mentioned the SEC is tough. It already was with South Carolina, LSU kind of leading the way the last few years, but now Texas, Oklahoma coming in. Alabama has to go to both of those spots. I mean, this league is about as balanced as it's been, and even a program like Tennessee having a few down years, now they're starting to get off to a really good start.
I mean, there's not going to be an easy game all the way around the league. You talk about Vic Schaefer in Texas coming into the league. Rory Harmon is back healthy, the star point guard that they had. They have some really good players on the perimeter and inside. What Oklahoma is bringing to the league is going to be something that's going to be to reckon with. You can't forget about Ole Miss over on the West with Coach Yo, what she's been able to do as far as the defensive style. I look up and down the entire league, even with Kentucky and Kenny Brooks coming in from Virginia Tech and bringing in some really good transfers from his roster with Georgia Amore. Some really, really good teams. And Alabama's going to have to make sure they play from in front. They have a tough stretch to start off SEC play. It's going to be very important to have to set the tone early on. You do not want to get behind the pace in conference play.
That's a look at conference play for the women's basketball team. Back to the men's side for a moment. You talked about, Alabama against Auburn. Those matchups are going to be huge this year with both teams in the top 10 already to start the season. Just SEC basketball, again, really balanced on the men's side. You have Tennessee as the number one team in the country right now. Just how exciting is this SEC race going to be?
I mean, I love it. I mean, this is the way college basketball should be. And I love to see Southeastern Conference basketball getting the credit that it deserves. This has always been a proud league that's had really good players and really good coaches, but now I think it's starting to get the national exposure to be one of the most highly sought after conferences for recruits, as well as playing a very unique and entertaining style of basketball. Now, I think the most elusive things for the Southeastern Conference this year will be who can finally win a national championship, as the drought has been since 2012, since Kentucky was able to get that done. but you have a plethora of teams that can make deep runs in the NCAA tournament. You mentioned Tennessee and what they're able to do, the physical brand of style that Rick Barnes has. Kentucky and new coach Mark Pope, they run a 5-out offense that really uses a lot of space and shooting from the outside, similar to what Nate Oats does at Alabama. Bruce Pearl has a deep roster, and they have the physical play of Janai Broome on the inside. They can have an inside and outside punch. I could go on and on and on. There's not going to be an easy game in the conference. And to the coaches and the team's benefits, every road game will be a quad one opportunity. Joe Lunardi already has 12 teams predicted in the Southeastern Conference to be in the NCAA tournament. So I definitely say this is the time where you can clearly say that it just means more.
It really does. And for you, you've had some travels with the SEC Network. Tell us where you've been and some of the teams you got to see in person over the last few weeks.
Well, listen, I just came off the road from the jungle, and, I had to make sure to watch out as the Alabama guy going down on the plains. But been in Georgia a couple of times, been in Rupp Arena with Kentucky. So I've been able to see several teams in this league, and I can tell you firsthand, they have talented teams that play a really good style of ball. To talk about that Auburn team, I think Auburn and Alabama, what they're doing now in the state is really impressive. And on a national scene, this might be the biggest rivalry in college basketball right now. You have two coaches who have dominated the league in recent years as far as SEC championships in the regular season and tournament is concerned, and also a recent Final Four by Alabama and Auburn within the last 5 years. Those two showdowns that they're going to have in the Iron Bowl of basketball, I think is going to be the top game in all of college basketball. I can't wait to see it.
Certainly look forward to it. Richard Hendrix, you're always so great to join us once a month here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Just thank you for the time you've given us here in December. Make sure you have a safe travels to your assignments and happy holidays coming up. We look forward to catching up with you again down the road. Roll Tide.
Thank you for having me, Roger. Roll Tide.
Hey, this is Jaron Stevenson, and you're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Greetings from Daytona, where year after year, greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Secure your seats now at Daytona500.com.
Well, Monday nights means the return of Hey Coach and the Nate Oats Show, presented by Alpha Insurance at 6 p.m. Central at Baumhower's here in Tuscaloosa. Chris Stewart is the host, and he always has a great assembly of guests, including Christy Curry talking women's basketball. Eris Lester was there on Monday as well. So I invite you to check out the full replay of that show on demand on the Alabama Insider podcast, plus our CTSN YouTube channel. Also, Houston Millette joined Nate Oats at Baumhower's for the conversation, so you get to know Houston Millette a little bit more. But here on the Head Coach replay, we wanted to hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nate Oats, get his thoughts on the win against North Carolina, look ahead to Creighton, and then everything else that's coming up in this busy stretch around the holidays to get Alabama ready for SEC play. Here's our Hey Coach replay with Nate Oats.
We've had a great visit with Houston Millette talking men's basketball, and the head coach of the Crimson Tide squad, Coach Nate Oats, joins us on stage now. Coach, good to see you.
It's great to be here.
Congratulations. Great win for the program. Look, I'm not going to ever say that beating North Carolina's old hat, but you've done it 3 straight times, 3 straight seasons, and now you go and do that in the Dean Dome. A fantastic victory, almost wire to wire against the Tar Heels.
Yeah, it was a little bit better win to go do it in their home arena. You know, it's a storied program, a lot of tradition, a lot of big games have gone on in that arena. So it was pretty cool to go. You know, I thought our guys, that was the best game I think we'd played all year. I think we offensively, we did a pretty good job. You know, we ended up having a few too many turnovers, but for a lot of the game, I thought we kept the turnovers low. We moved the ball really well. You know, Sears ended up with 7 assists. I thought that was his best game offensively. You know, I thought he got the ball moving. So, and defensively, you know, we gave up too much in transition, but in the half court, we held them to a 0.6, which is an elite level defense against a pretty good offensive team. So I think our guys are starting to figure out what we want out of them defensively. We just got to get back and make teams go against our half-court defense moving forward.
You lose a player like Latrell Wrightsell, and on the personal note, I know for everybody that knows him, you're heartbroken because he's such a great young man, battled through so much to get himself in position to play again, and then he has the injury that he does. But just from a basketball standpoint, what a luxury to turn to the bench and have a guy who's not only available but unselfish enough in Houston Millette to take the red shirt off and make himself available now for this team.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's great. He's been all about whatever the program needs since the day he walked on campus. You know, I can't say enough about him, and so he's kept himself ready. You know, he came in with some knees that needed to be rehabbed. He spent the whole summer doing that, so that's really why we put him on the red shirt, because he just didn't get a full summer with us. And, you know, some other guys probably gotten ahead of him while he was trying to rehab his knees, and we want to do what's right by him and his health. But, you know, when Reitzel went down and there was minutes available, you know, we've still been trying to limit him a little bit with what do we do with him with his knees, but I thought he'd been looking great in practice, so I kind of approached him, talked to him and his dad, and you know, they were all for it. So, you know, he played 9 minutes, and we were plus 12 in the 9 minutes he played. He was 2 of 2 from 3 and made all kinds of winning plays. So I think you see what he's capable of, and we'll see where it kind of goes from here.
But just from a plan standpoint, how do you determine minutes to give guys an opportunity? What group works best together, all of those things. How do you go about that?
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, that was part of the reason we redshirted some guys, just to get them some more minutes when maybe there was more minutes available. But we do use a lot of analytics. We have our analytics company that gives us data. You know, we had the exhibition games, we had a lot of practice data. But, you know, we tell the guy, and some of the guys, it's like some of the guys were out. Like Darian Reed, for instance, missed a lot in the summer and fall with some different injuries, but you see a lot of upside with him. So even some games where maybe he wasn't, you know, maybe we didn't have a positive plus minus with him, we still want to play him because he's such a good kid and we can see where he's going to get to.
Right.
And then it gets rewarded because I think 2 out of the last 3 games he was in our top 2 on plus minus stuff. So some of that you got to just trust where it's headed because of the potential you see and how hard they work and what they want. Some of it, though, is, and as it gets towards the end of the season, you know, you're going to base a lot of it off the analytics and the numbers, and are we better with you on the floor or are we better with you off the floor? If we're better with you on the floor, then you're going to be on the floor. And some of the guys have, you know, we'll get like a minutes, like, you know, as the season goes on, where does their production fall off after so many minutes? You know, some guys will be shorter stints, so 2 minutes at a time, 3 minutes at a time, 5 minutes at whatever it is, you know, so then we'll try to get them out a little bit. So, but we use analytics, obviously, as you know, in a lot of the program, we use that for this, but there's obviously a lot of feel that goes into it as well. All right, perfect. So I was actually just watching Creighton film right before I walked into the show, so it's a good question. Like, one is I think they do a really good job running their half-court sets, and they do a good job of punching inside the Kalkbrenner, running pick and roll with Kalkbrenner as a lob target. So, you know, you don't know whether he's going to post up, pick and roll. And then they've got a point guard in Ashworth that's extremely smart and doesn't miss many open shots. So, and they added a transfer in a Neal, so they who actually pushes the pace really well. So Creighton will push in transition. I'm not sure they're quite as good as Carolina, but they'll push, and our transition defense has to be very well. But then when they don't score in transition, they do a really good job running good half-court sets. I think McDermott's one of the better coaches in the country. They've run really good stuff for both their shooters, you know, in Ashworth, some of their wings, and Neal, and then Kalkbrenner's one of the best bigs in the country. So we've been a little bit not where we need to be in post defense, and we try to make a big point of emphasis of it this week, where we've had, you know, like 9 days between games, getting our post defense better. So they're gonna stress our transition defense, our post defense, our pick and roll defense, and all 3 of those have been big points of emphasis that we have to get better at. So I think this will be the team that has a great combination of all of it, along with some really good half-court sets for their shooters. So we're going to have to be great in transition, great in post-D, great in pick-and-roll defense, and then we're going to have to guard some really good sets for shooters. So everybody's going to kind of have to be on top of their game on the defensive side of the ball.
Creighton next Saturday night, 7:30. First time in forever we've been home, and a great opponent coming in.
Yeah, they're really good. You know, we played them last year at their place, had a good game. We came up on the short end. They're returning the game. You know, Coach McDermott's one of the best coaches in the country. They've been one of the best programs in the country for the last, half dozen, 10 years or so, going all the way back to when his son was playing there. You know, I think they're a good team. They're gonna test us. They're gonna give us a good run. We're gonna have to play really well to get the win. But you know, I think we'll make them better. They'll make us better. It'll be better for us going into SEC play because the SEC is the best conference in college basketball right now by a long shot. So I like the fact that we scheduled as tough as we did because we're gonna need it to be ready to play in the SEC with the amount of teams. I mean, shoot, there's 4 or 5 teams in the top 10. I mean, we got
5 of the top 10
5
today,
in the
Coach.
top 10, yeah. And then I don't know how many in the top 25. That's your job to know all that. But there's a lot. There's a lot of them. So it's a good league. Creighton's a really good program. We're going to have to be ready to go on Saturday. So hopefully we can pack the place out. It's graduation Saturday, so students will be done with school. So hopefully we can get everybody else there and get enough students to stick around after finals are over to make the arena a great environment.
Coach, always appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you guys. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Coach Nate Oats with us here on the program.
Don't miss out on your chance to experience the energy and the excitement of the Great American Race. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today for the 2025 Daytona 500 at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. Great to see the return of Hey Coach with Nate Oats. And as we take a look at our upcoming schedule, remember that show will be back coming up next week and then take a little bit of time off for the holidays before returning in January. But it's going to be a busy time before the Christmas holiday. Let's take a look at our upcoming schedule here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. It's going to be great to be back inside Coleman Coliseum. Haven't been there very much over the last few weeks, but men's basketball against Creighton coming up on Saturday, and then the women's basketball team home against Murray State. You see the air times listed below, and do want to remind you as well, we will have the Courtside Cam presented by NASCAR as streaming live on all CTSN social media platforms for both men's and women's basketball coming up, as it's going to be a busy time for the men's team, even a little bit more time coming up on the road for Alabama men's basketball as they're going to be taking on North Dakota coming up on Wednesday. The women's basketball team will head to West Palm Beach for a tournament over the next weekend. So it's going to be a busy time. Make sure you're locked into us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network for all the latest, including Hey Coach coming up on Monday as well. Then follow us at UA_CTSN for some interview clips, some courtside cam highlights, plus some football content to get you ready for Alabama against Michigan in their ReliaQuest Bowl. That's a look at our upcoming schedule. And that is going to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Again, our final one that we'll have for you in 2024. A little bit of a holiday break for us, but we'll be back coming up in January with new editions of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We'll get back at our podcast studio, have one-on-one conversations that you can't miss with Alabama student athletes and coaches. Thank you to Ace Austin, of course, an Alabama women's basketball signee, for joining us at the top of the show. Richard Hendrix with Hoops with Hendrix, then Chris Stewart and Nate Oats with our Hey Coach replay. Thank you to Ethan Karaman. He put this entire show together. He's put all 244 of these shows together throughout the run of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We thank Ethan for his fine work, and we thank all of you for watching. This is Roger Hoover in Tuscaloosa. Thanks again for joining us for Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We'll see you in the new year. Good luck to the Crimson Tide here on out around the holiday season, and hope all of you have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year coming up. We'll see you in 2025. Roll Tide, everyone.